Hey there, and thanks for joining me in creating confident offspring by teaching your children to be assertive. Now, Stephanie Matson said when children are treated with acceptance, they develop self acceptance. We all know that children experience pressure at home, and for sure, they also experience that same pressure in school. So it's never too early to teach them to be assertive. Now, keep in mind that when we're talking about teaching them to be assertive, it's not the same thing as teaching them to be aggressive or obnoxious or teaching them to go on the offense. Now, it all starts when we're children and continues into our adult life. So, what you need to understand is that the situation is more difficult for children because they're not yet aware that they have the same rights as we do as adults. Now, children and maybe even some adults need to be taught that. I'm going to go through a couple things that is important to make sure that as you're raising your children that you're instilling in them so that they understand and can be more assertive throughout their life, more confident and take that into their adult life as well. One thing that they need to know is that nobody has the right to make them feel guilty, foolish, or ignorant. Again, we know this as adults, but when we're speaking about children, again, they don't understand that they have the same rights that we understand that we have as adults. So some bullies may try to do just that. And your child needs to know that these bullies don't have the right to do mean things to anyone. Bullies should just be ignored and not listened to for the sake of your child's well being. Another thing they need to know is that they don't have to make excuses for every little thing that they do. Now, as children, they're accountable only to a few people, and these people are mainly parents, brothers, sisters, close relatives, immediate family. And of course, they're accountable to themselves, but in all honesty, they're not really held accountable to anybody else. They also need to understand that they're allowed to change their minds and not feel bad about it. Some adults have a change of heart, so why can't kids have the same? Children need to know that it's okay to change their minds. Nothing's carved in stone, especially when it comes to children. Now, if things go wrong, children need to understand that it's not necessarily their fault. Many children internalize family problems, for example, and they take blame for things that they have no control over. In fact, these are things that they shouldn't even deal with at all. So be cognizant of what you're exposing your child to and make sure that you're having those conversations so that they fully understand. A good example of this would be, say, separation of their parents. It's not their fault, and they need to understand that. Children need to know that they don't have to know everything. This applies to a lot of adults too. It is okay to say, I don't know or I don't understand. Adults, they don't know everything, so why should children know everything? So it's super important to teach your child not to feel inferior because they don't have the right answers for all the questions at once. Children also feel this way in their early years of school, so they need to be reminded that their lack of knowledge is the primary reason why they have to stay in school and study and do their best that they can. Children need to understand that making mistakes are not the end of the world. There's nothing wrong about making mistakes. They need to know nobody's perfect and we all make them. They should just admit the mistake, correct it if possible. Mistakes are mechanisms that facilitate learning. Something else that's important to make sure that your children understand is that they don't have to be everybody's friend. They don't have to be the people pleasers. Not everybody's going to like them, and that's okay. Many children, especially in school, sometimes feel that there's something wrong with them if they only have a couple friends. This is one of the basic lessons for children. They're not going to be liked by everyone, and they're going to meet other kids who are just not on the same wavelength of them. You know that this is the same in the adult world too. So this is something that's important to teach them and instill in them so that they can carry that on into their adult life. Children need to understand that if they don't understand something, it's okay to say, I don't get it. They feel bad when they don't get it. They think they're inferior and like there's something wrong with them. But again, not everybody gets it. It's okay. And life still goes on. Children should be reminded that they don't have to prove themselves to everybody that they meet. Children have to be taught that they don't have to prove anything to others. It's just okay to be just themselves. Having to prove something to everyone is exhausting, as you know, and it's going to sap the self-confidence that you're trying to build in your child. They also need to understand that they don't have to be perfect. Perfection is not possible anyway. They should just be themselves. It's unfair to expect perfection from your child, and especially because you can't attain it yourself. So, the biggest obstacle to your children's personality and development might just be their own social skills. Young children, they have social and communication skills that they need to make them feel self-confident. Meeting new kids makes children nervous. They're unsure about what to say or how to approach other children or adults. So what you can do is prepare them for new social encounters by doing frequent little role-playing activities with them and helping them practice social conversation by pretending to be the new kid. Teach your kids how to initiate and sustain conversations with others. Teaching them social skills is the first step to making them more comfortable in honestly just about every given situation. The more comfortable that they feel in these situations, the easier that they'll learn how to be assertive, the better they understand themselves, and the more that they'll know how to articulate their needs. Now, as you go through these role playing activities, you must teach your children how to ask questions and get others to respond. You'll also want to equip them with skills on following up the information that they receive. This is going to teach your kids to become good listeners. This is especially helpful for shy children. This way, you can develop the children to become good listeners, excellent conversationalists, self confident, and assertive individuals. Now, because of their tender age, frustration easily sets in, and children have a tendency to respond with anger. So, it's imperative to teach your children that anger is not a good tool for asserting themselves. Now, as an adult, you already know that other people react negatively towards anger and aggressiveness. Anger just distorts the message that the child's trying to deliver, thus resulting in a breakdown in communication. So, just as this is highly ineffective for adults, it is with children as well. Credibility is automatically discounted when they display their anger. Now, children can be more expressive in communicating anger. Signs of anger might include dragging their feet, passive aggressiveness, throwing tantrums, breaking toys, hitting others, you name it. So it might be hard to understand, especially for younger children, that anger is not an effective tool in building assertiveness. Now, when you're asserting your authority over children, one of the qualities that you should have is persistence. Repetition is another effective way for teaching younger toddlers. You repeat over and over and over what you want from them. Your children can use the same tool to help assert themselves to their peers as well. Now, yelling, screaming, and pounding isn't going to get them what they want, but persistence is going to wear down the opposition that they may experience. Another useful tool is working out a compromise with others. Everybody wants to feel that they've won the round. Compromising ensures that both sides win and nobody loses. So, asserting without denying the rights of another person can bring about a peaceful solution to everyone. Non-assertive children, though, will be oversensitive to criticisms, especially those expressed by family members. Remember, they just want to be liked and accepted by everyone. They're also terrified of getting caught making a mistake. They're constantly afraid of being wrong, doing something wrong, or being thought of as stupid, so to speak. So you can also spot non-assertive children because of their lack of persistence. They're going to give up far too easily and not try after maybe one single failure. Now, children must also be taught to deal with mistakes. They have to know it's not the end of the world if they make an error. Everybody makes mistakes, so it's okay as long as you admit it and try to rectify it. Now, when children are not taught how to cope with mistakes, they tend to get extremely upset. So, learning to deal with one's own faults and those of others is difficult for adults to deal with, let alone children. So, it's important to let them know that it's okay not to be perfect because none of us are. You shouldn't expect them to perform perfectly all the time. Perfection is something none of us can live up to no matter how hard we try. It is unfair to expect a child to be perfect. Many children spend their whole lives trying to live up to their parents' unfair expectations instead of learning the best at whatever it is that they choose. Now, as far as criticism is concerned, you should prepare your children in handling criticism. They'll receive criticism all through their lives, as you know. There's always going to be someone around to criticize them. The critics are out there waiting to pounce on them for any imperfection or error. And when children learn to relax and just be themselves, and they develop the ability to filter what others have to say and learn not to be as easily influenced by the opinions of others, this is going to result in them leading happier and more relaxed lives. They're going to grow up and become well-adjusted adults in the future. Now, keep in mind that the only way that you're going to be able to teach your children to assert themselves is by learning how to be assertive yourself. As much as you want your children to be assertive and learn to stand up for themselves, you can't become a pushover parent either. So if you find it hard to say no to your children when they're making unreasonable demands, and if you give in repeatedly, you are setting the stage for their demands to grow larger and larger and larger with each passing day. So it's up to you as the adult to set the example for your child. No means no, period. End of discussion. You don't have to become a doormat to ensure that your child becomes assertive. You also don't have to express an experience. So if you're assertive and fair, they're going to learn to become assertive and fair as well. Also, you want to keep in mind what John Whitehead said. Children are the living messages we send to a time we will not see.